Yes, I appreciate it. Here tonight, I'm going to say a few words. I'm not going to take up too much time because it's and you want to get home and read a lot of
State Representative Barb Beecher.
How are you?
Good. Good to meet you.
How are things?
Good. Let's see it. Kick Judge Collins' butt. Good.
Find your way?
I'm sorry, you're in the spot.
Okay, folks, let me get started because we got a long evening here of really interesting stuff going on. My name's Terry Dietrich. I'm the chairman of the Republican Party of Waukesha County. Welcome. You are all concerned citizens, so thank you for coming, because this is really what America's about, okay? So tonight we've got our election integrity forum. We're going to go into that in a little bit, all right? Just a couple of kind of housekeeping things. We've got bathrooms in the back. We've got the exit out back, all right? Try not to fall very, very crowded night. We had about 175 people who are SVP. I imagine we're going to be over 200. So that's fantastic. It shows that people are really concerned. They're really, really concerned about all of these subjects here in the state, and with good reason. Let me just start real quickly. You know what? I think what we'll do, I'm going to ask my friend Jerry Malone. This is impromptu. We're going to ask Jerry to step up, and he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you join me. Lord,
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you, Jerry. So I'm going to talk about 1 minute, and then I'm going to turn it over to another friend of ours who just came down from Madison to address us as well. So, how many voted in the spring election? Wow! Fantastic. Awesome. You know what happened in the spring election? The Republican Party of Waukesha County, under our WIS-RED initiative, and a whole host of 118 courageous candidates stepped up, and out of 118 candidates that ran throughout our county, we won 100 of them. 100 out of 118, 86% voting percentage. We crushed it. We crushed it. And it was because people like you got out and voted because you're really concerned. The bottom line is, we've been slipping, we've been losing ground around the county. Not because we've been losing fair fights with our candidates, but frankly speaking, we haven't been running people in open seats. We've been letting things slip. Libs are getting into these places and then manipulating around, and before you know it, we're losing majorities. Well, there's a new sheriff in town. Me and you. Okay? We're stopping all. So out of those 118 that we ran, we filled every single seat that was open. There was no open seat. They had to take us on. And the theory that we had, we knew surely that Waukesha is a 60, 40, 70, 30 or higher county. We knew if we got our red vote out, that we would win everywhere. And that's what we haven't done in the past, that's what we did this time. And we're on the path to taking our county back. Now, next year is just important, and frankly speaking, we're getting started on it right now. If we won 75% or more this spring, if we win 75% or more next spring, we will effectively take back every majority of every board and every school board in this entire county. This is our mission. This is our hope. Time to take it back. Okay? Now, I mean, everybody's been watching what the heck is going on around the United States and in Wisconsin and in Waukesha with an absolutely clear violation, ignoring of the law, ignoring of what's going on in the courts like it just doesn't matter. Well, frankly speaking, that's got to end as well, because we can get the vote all we want, but number one, we got to secure the vote, and our laws have to stand for something, and people have to abide by the law, right? So we're joined by a friend of ours tonight. He's from Madison. He's, believe it or not, he's a conservative professor at the University of Wisconsin Business School. Can you imagine? When he first called me 6 months ago, I said, no, I think you gotta be joking me. But the bottom line is, we've got a gentleman in the back. His name's Ryan Owens. He announced, what, 2 days ago? 2 days ago? Monday at noon he announced he's running for Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin. Let's get him up here. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Owens.
Excellent. Hey, thanks everybody. I want to say thank you to Terry. He has done one hell of a good job. Give him a round of applause, please. Amazing. Quick question for everybody before I tell you a few things about myself. I want a question. How many of you are proud to be Republicans? That's good. I think we can do better. How many of you are proud to be Republicans? We got to keep that energy alive, folks. We got to keep that energy alive, because this election is going to be important. important. Everything we see right now, we say to ourselves, this is the most important election of our lifetime, but by God, it seems like they all are, because they are. You know what's on the ballot in 2022? 3 things. There, we do it this way. We can do it the German way, I don't know. 3 things. Freedom, safety, and prosperity. Those 3 things are going to be on the agenda in our election next time around. Let's talk about freedom very briefly. Where in the world was Josh Kaul over the last year and a half? Where was he? He was siding with radical teachers' unions trying to keep our schools closed. Come on, folks, that's unbelievable. Where was he with election stuff? Absent without leave. Where was he with administrative overreach? Nowhere to be found other than perpetrating that nonsense. We have individual rights and liberties in this country that we give over to a legislature, and we hold them accountable. And when they want to give that authority over to unelected bureaucrats, we've got one heck of a problem on our hand, folks. We got to fight for our freedoms. Safety, I don't have to tell you all this. Where was this Attorney General when Kenosha burned? Where was he? It's simple, I don't have to say anything other than that. He was nowhere to be found. Nowhere. How about prosperity? Raise your hand if you or someone you know or love lost their job, lost their business, or had their hours cut. Take a look around. This is Wisconsin. This is your friends. This is your family. Josh Kaul sided with the governor to issue executive orders that were unconstitutional and that destroyed our prosperity. We need someone who can fight back. All right. I will say one final thing to you, leave you on a positive note after this. I know you've got a busy agenda tonight, so I'll tell you what Henry VIII told all of his wives. I won't keep you long. Right now, as I look out and we talk about prosperity, we've got government shutting down businesses, DAs going around shutting down businesses for violating the safer at home order. It reminds me of the story about the former Soviet Union. We could talk about Venezuela or any other socialist entity, and maybe California. It's about a guy living in the Soviet Union who wanted to buy a car. He saved up his money, he went to the car dealership. He said, I want to buy this vehicle. They haggled over the price. He said, all right, you have that car back in 10 years. I said, 10 years? I got to come and pick it up in 10 years from now? The guy said, yep. All right. So he said, do I come and pick it up in the morning or the afternoon? And the dealer said, well, what difference does it make? He said, well, the plumber's coming in the morning. That's what we get in socialist countries, folks. That's not what we get in America. The Wisconsin way is freedom, it's safety, and it's prosperity. And I am running for Attorney General because I believe in those 3 things. My name is Ryan Owens. You can check out our website at owensforwisconsin.com. Thank you for indulging me. I love Waukesha County. Keep up the good fight. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, fantastic. Great candidate. Okay, a little bit more house cleaning here, and something I wanted to do when I announced the fact of our elections, our spring elections. Do we have any of our courageous candidates here tonight, and can they please stand? We've got Jeff Schmittinger. Anybody else? Anthony's in back. Fantastic, guys. We really appreciate it. Okay, one other thing. One thing that I think we're a little bit short of, and we got to work real hard all the course of this year, because actually in October we've got to, as a county party, we've got to turn these into the local clerks. We need poll workers and we need poll observers. How many have been a poll worker or poll observer in the past? Fantastic. That's great. Listen, we have a table in the back. There's John there in the, what do we call it, the tropical shirt in the back. And there's Diane in the back. Ken's over there as well. If you are interested in poll working, you want to do it again, you've got friends that do it, we implore you, with what's going on with election security around Waukesha, we have to have more people. Please step back there. They can get you signed up, etc. Yes, Wendy?
Please have move to the inside so we can get everybody to sit down.
Okay. Yep. So folks, just gotta help people into their seats, okay? I got it. Okay. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a bit of the ground rules. All right, we're going to introduce our 4 legislators who are gracious enough to come down from Madison. They're Wisconsin Leggies. They're part of our family, okay? And the bottom line is we need to treat them with respect just like you expect to be treated with respect, all right? I know there's a lot of hot feelings, there's a lot of disgruntlement, but the bottom line is why we're having this forum tonight is we want to give our legislators the chance to actually educate and tell you exactly what they're doing up in Madison. Because I tell you what, I've lived this just like you have since last fall, and there's so much misinformation, half information, etc. out there, it's really, really tough to understand. Where we think that we have the best team and the best circumstances with this group of legislators that are here tonight. So let me go ahead and introduce them first. From Pewaukee Area District, Adam Nealon, Representative Adam Nealon. From Menominee Falls, the Chairman of the Assembly Election Committee, Janelle Branchin. On the Rules Committee over in the State Senate, Senator Steve Nass. By State Representative Joe Sanfilippo. He's on his way, and he'll join the group up here. Okay? So we're going to ask them all to be seated to start with. And then Janelle, what's that? You don't want to sit? All right, can you stand up there so everyone can see it?
No, I think they can see me right here, can't
All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. They want you on stage.
That way you can throw things at me easier.
Okay, so we're gonna start with some opening comments from the chairman, and then we're gonna move on to comments by our Rules Committee members because it's really important what they have to say too. Okay, Janelle?
Thanks for coming tonight. We are so glad that you're here. Again, I'm Representative Janelle Branchin, and yes, they let girls serve in the assembly. It's true. It's really true. So we work in a really beautiful building in Madison, and it's 100 years old this year. Yeah, it's hard to believe. And in one of the corners, in a mosaic that's probably almost 100 feet tall, is a woman called Liberty. And she's guarding a box. It's kind of a box in a sphere. Who's been to Madison and seen that? Yeah, right. And she's pointing up. What is she pointing up to? In the building, there's all kinds of historical things. When you point up, you're usually referring to God, right? And this box that she's coveting is the ballot box. 100 years ago, our forefathers understood the importance of protecting the ballot box, and they made a huge mural, and they reminded us that we needed God to protect it. And I think when you talk about the 2020 election, we need God to help protect our ballot box in Wisconsin. Amen. So, what happened? In 2016, we had a tremendous turnout. Donald Trump won the state, and a whole bunch of liberals decided we got to do something. In 2019, a nonprofit came to the state of Wisconsin and said, guess what? I have a pile of money for you. Would you like to use it to run an election? And honestly, who ever heard of nonprofits bringing money to Wisconsin? A guy by the name of Zuckerberg. Have you ever heard of him? He actually brought money only to 5 communities. He brought it to Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Kenosha, and Racine. Well, that seems kind of nice. Well, somebody said, those are all Democrat strongholds. How can you do that? And a group came in and sued them. And before they could finish, they settled and they gave money to another 240 communities, including right here in Waukesha. They gave Milwaukee $3.5 million. They gave Waukesha about $42,000. So that was a good deal. You know, when you think about equality, that was a great deal, right? So we have in the state nonprofits that are, and I want you to think about a nonprofit status. These gentlemen up here and myself, if we take $1 or anything over $10, I have to put in a report They came to the state with several $1 million and there's no oversight. And they got to write it all off. Zuckerberg got to write off all of this money because he made nonprofits. So there's the nonprofit that he came to, CTCL, Center for Tech and Civic Life. Doesn't that sound like a nice name? Center for Tech and Civic. Doesn't that sound like a nice group? There was also the Brennan Group came here. Ideas 54 came here. Oh, you haven't heard about these groups? Well, we wouldn't know because there's nonprofits and there's no way for us to know where they were. Well, we're gonna go to Green Bay. Green Bay, right, or Packers, we love them. Green Bay, Wisconsin. They brought money to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And about July, they went to their local common council and they agreed to take the money, about $1.8 million. And day one, the clerk there said, how would these people from out of state have any idea about our election laws? Her name was Chris Teskey. And Chris realized early that there was going to be maybe a problem here. So the clerk in Green Bay said, as these meetings went on, I'm being micromanaged. My staff doesn't feel safe. These people aren't listening to us. They're not from this state. These are emails that we were lucky enough to get after an open records request in November. When you have an open records request in November, when do you think you get the open records back, Jerry? February. Yeah, February would be the time that we would get it back. It takes all that time, right? So we had an open records request. We got them in February. They gave up about 15,000 emails that we read through. We put them together, and we realized that the clerk there, who is now gone, she left at the end of after the election, and the deputy clerk left. They both left from Green Bay. And there's this long litany of concerns that they have. And that's exactly what's different than all the other states have that we have, is we had the canary. We have the canary in the coal mine. She told us repeatedly in emails of her concerns about these ability of these folks that came in from out of state and were dropping money in, and we had no idea what kind of control they had. Well, what did they do? Well, they had questions about how to run our machines. They were curing ballots. Does everybody know what curing ballots means now? Right? So when you have an absentee ballot, you have your name, your signature, your address, and then you have a witness, name, signature, address. And if it isn't made out, the clerk is to return it to you. Well, they were having ballot carrying parties. They wanted to make sure that all of these ballots would count. Probably the thing that brought all of us to the greatest attention is, on election day, we found ourselves with a New Yorker by the name of Michael Spitzer Rubenstein, who has a double last name as a man, come on. Because when you people think about who exactly would be running an election in Wisconsin, you all think, New York, yes! We think New Yorkers would know how to run all of our election laws, right? Sir, you are very clever, I can tell that. So a New Yorker was on election day in Green Bay in Central Count, and to start the day, on the hotel contract where they were having this Central Count, it says in big bold letters, and you can go to either my website, or we're going to make sure it's on the website for the county party tomorrow. It says, do not open the doors until security with Michael Spitzer Rubenstein comes in, because he has 4 out of the 5 keys. Yeah, because New Yorkers, we give the keys basically over when we want to run an election in Green Bay. You're right. That's disgusting. And we have it on paper. And we know it happened. And guess what? It cannot happen again. We are going to have to fight, just like these guys and the committee. We're going to use every available option to make sure that New Yorkers with money from out of state and nonprofit status that we have no idea how they're connected to ever get to be part of our election process again. And that's where you clap. Because New Yorkers do not have the ability to bring their data money in and be part of our election process, right? So you're gonna say, well, what are you doing? Well, the first thing we had to do is we had to know how they did it, right? We still have open records requested going forward in Green Bay, Milwaukee, Madison, Kenosha, and Racine. And there will be more action. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago on Thursday, Green Bay was struck with a lawsuit, as well as WEC, in regards to our Wisconsin Election Commission about taking third-party money. You can be grateful to the Thomas More Society. They came forward and they have decided to pursue this lawsuit. Again, we will make it available for you. The shortened version is 38 pages, and we will make it available to you so that you can see exactly what the concerns were, what the clerk's concerns were, and how these third parties what they actually did in the state of Wisconsin. So now we have found this information. We're going to continue with information in Racine, Milwaukee, Kenosha, and Racine, with all the rest of the communities. Because we need to make sure that we know how they're all connected, because we see that they connected people through the organization and the timeline. Milwaukee shared people with Green Bay shared people with Racine. So yes, we're going to have this conversation. I think one of the attorneys made it very clear to me that we are dealing, as he said, with very competent enemies. When Michael Spitzer Rubenstein came to Wisconsin, Zuckerberg just didn't hire a guy. He hired a data specialist. He hired people that had cybersecurity knowledge. The list of people that he had come to Milwaukee was pretty incredible. As a matter of fact, they hired Michelle Obama's group. She has her own nonprofit by the name of When We All Vote. Did you know that? Yeah, she was here in Milwaukee in October, and they had a big rally, and they were funded by this money to When We All Vote. So our forefathers didn't really prepare for all of the laws that were necessary to deal with third-party, nonprofit, out-of-state money to be part of our elections. So I can guarantee you that these gentlemen and myself are truly committed to making sure that we close up every loophole we can. But I'm going to need your help too. Because I have a governor who just thinks this is fine. Janelle, what's your problem? Third-party money, they just want to give us money. Why are you and the rest of the team so nuts about it? He's going to try to veto it unless we make it very uncomfortable for him. So who has Tony's email? It's accessible. Who has Tony's phone number? How about snail mail? He loves getting letters. He really does. Because if we don't make it uncomfortable that all of these bills that we're talking about that you're going to hear from, they're transparent bills. They're bills about making a fair playing field, that we know who comes to the state and does elections, and who works and who gets paid. That is exactly what these bills are about. So I'm going to need you to be loud and make sure that he knows if he vetoes those bills, and Adam will talk about them, and so will Senator Nas. If you make it easy for him, he's just going to veto, and in 2022 we're going to have these same problems. You had heard from my chairman, who's awesome, Terry Dietrich. I need you to be poll workers. I cannot tell you how many of these locations they brought in their own people. They hired them with extra money, and they actually came in and they were the only ones in the room counting the ballots, Democrats. How did we let that happen? Right. So we will have poll worker class. We're going to do a giant one. You have to be a poll worker in your municipality, but you, any of us, can be an observer any place you want. You can be an observer in Madison. You can be an observer in Milwaukee. And you have to realize that these elections are going to go late, right? So we need folks that are going to be okay with being there at 10 o'clock at night. It's okay. You don't have to stay there all day. As a matter of fact, the information that we have from Green Bay, the best information came from 3 observers who made affidavits that night. And that's the difference. When we're in the room, when you see that mural of the woman guarding the ballot box, that is exactly what she's talking about. Making sure we're in the room when the ballots are being counted. Because that is the opportunity to make sure that it's fair. Our laws are really clear. Republicans and Democrats, top to bottom, both of us, at every part of the election process. And I guess for many years we thought our biggest job was to vote. I get it. But now we need more. I need you to make sure that you make the governor's life uncomfortable if he's not okay with transparent bills that bring equity into the system and close loopholes, like bringing in third-party money. I need to make sure that you're poll workers. These are the type of things that guarantee that we have fair elections. On one final note, now I'll let them take over. Those poor boys, they're like, oh my gosh, she's just constantly talking. One final point, we realized there was an issue early on, and we have done, with your generous taxpayer money, we've done an audit. And the audit is going to take quite a few months. It's a deep dive. And we are planning to get more information as that audit comes done by your own state auditors who have forensic capabilities. So there is more to come. And I hope it makes you angry enough to realize that if you want liberty in this state, we're going to have to fight these bastards for it, okay? And that's true.
Really important news. Who's got a beige Camry? Your lights are on. If you got a beige Camry, get outside because it's going to be dead before then. Okay, guys, we'll turn to Adam Nalen now for State Assembly Rules Committee. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. First, let's give a hand to Janelle. That was great, Janelle. As the chair of the Elections Committee, I've had some ideas that she mentioned, and we want to take this fight to the rulemaking process, and she's been really great to work with. And the other thing I want to touch on before we get too far into it, and if you guys will indulge me, I know this might be a little bit off the message, but if we could just stand and give one moment of silence to Don Taylor, who passed away, who's been a mentor, who's been a great leader of this county party. Thank you. But I'd be remiss not to mention him. He's been instrumental in my time here in Waukesha County. I got involved as an 18-year-old almost 20 years ago in the county party here, and he's built this to where we're at today, one of the best party in the entire state. So
he's not really 20 years older, is he, Steve? Come on, really? Did you believe that?
I'm getting old. Getting old. And so I just want to touch upon a few things, a little bit of what Janelle talked about, but I want to also mention an opportunity we have, and that is to win through the rulemaking process. Because, let's face it, they broke rules. I mean, it's as simple as that. They're continuing to break rules. And our power only goes so far in terms of lawmaking before you have to take people to court and show, like we did with the mask mandate, like we did with capacity limits, like we did with the Safer at Home order. We won those fights, and it might not have happened on the timeline we all would have liked, but we took them to court and showed that the administration does not care about the rule of law. They continually violate the law because their answer is, Well, we can't work with the legislature, which means they can't get what they want, which means they go around us. And that has to stop. And Senator Naas is the co-chair of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, along with myself. I'll let him talk a little bit on strategy, but I just want to mention a little bit more because I am the author, along with Senator Dewey Strobel, on the bill to prohibit the third-party financing of elections. If you just look, and Janelle did a good job going over what just happened, but it's impossible to look at that situation, what happened in Green Bay and what happened throughout Wisconsin in the big cities, and think that that was a free and fair election. It's impossible. It's impossible to see, to know, to scratch the surface and see what's happening and think that laws were followed, because clearly laws were broken. And one of the reasons that they were able to violate our law and to circumvent the legislature is this idea of guidance. This idea that they can issue these directives. Why can issue these directives that are guidance documents that fly in the face of the law, go around the law, and say, oh no, you don't need to send special voting deputies into nursing homes. We're issuing guidance that says that you don't have to do that. You don't have to follow the law. That's a problem. That's a problem that we're gonna fix, and we can do it. That's why we're here today, right? Through the administrative rule-making process. Senator Naas and I have issued them an order to say, if you do the special voting deputy rule, it has to go through the administrative rule-making process. You can't just order this guidance directive and then carry it out without going through the legislature. We took the same strategy with things like the Safer at Home order, with the mask mandate, because you know what he did? He has 60 days in the emergency rule to say that, okay, safer at home. And then when you go around that, after the 60 days, you need to go through the legislature. He didn't do that. So he issued it as an executive order instead of going through the rule process.
What penalty is there going to be?
We are going to do a Q&A at the end, and we're here to answer your questions. But I need to give you some hope, because when we talk about the legislation that we're doing, it's just going to be vetoed, and we're going to be in the same situation, and we got to make sure that he's not going to veto it. That's a dead end for us. What we need is an actual strategy to make sure that they need to follow the law. And our way of doing that is making sure that they use the rule-making process when they go through with these rules. And when we sent a letter, and I'll let Senator Naas talk about this, but when last JCRR meeting, our committee we had, we issued an order to them saying that the cease and desist on the special voting deputies. You cannot do that through guidance. Go through the rulemaking process.
Amen.
And they came back, and it was unbelievable, but they were confused about their ability to promulgate rules.
Who is they? You keep saying
WEC, Elections Commission.
So everybody understands free Republicans.
So everybody understands, when we refer to WEC, that is the Wisconsin Election Commission, and it is set up with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, but, well, hey, listen, we've come here to have a conversation with you, so let's show respect on both sides. We are trying to work through the rule system that we have to use every opportunity, including all of you, and listen, if we don't work together, we're screwed. And I'm going to tell you, everybody up here, this is not a 40-hour week for us. This is a 60-hour week. This is the 4th event I've been to this month, this week. And I get another one tomorrow, and I'm up north on Saturday. So we are committed to making sure, number 1, that our voters understand what happens, what we can do to remedy, and number 3, that we are all working together to use every opportunity we can to correct what honestly was an abuse, okay?
Absolutely. And it's not just, it's also transparency. we have legislation to make sure that everything the Wisconsin Election Commission does needs to be public within 48 hours of them promulgating whatever. Because right now, how it works is they don't publicize or don't open their meeting records until the next time that they meet. So it could be sitting there for months where we don't know as a general public about what type of guidance documents they have voted on. So we need to make sure that they're transparent, we need to hold them accountable, and we also need to stop them from issuing guidance and follow the law. Because once they do promulgate the rule, we can block it. We can reject it, and then it goes away. We can stop them. We can stop them if they follow the law. And to make sure that they're following the law, we're holding them accountable, and there also needs to be a court case just like there was with Safer at Home, just like there was with the mask mandate, because we will win that, and they won't be able to circumvent the law, go around the law, and make sure that special voting deputies aren't sent in. You know, so I'll let Senator Nass, I have some more things.
Let me just ask one simple question.
Yeah.
Who funds the WEC? Who gives them their money for their existence?
You do.
You do?
You do.
No, that's not
No, no, it doesn't. Well, it comes from all of us. The money from the Wisconsin Elections Commission comes from you. And the Wisconsin Elections Commission is responsible to the legislature. And that's us, and we represent you.
Who's the appointees? How do they get appointed?
Wow. Okay.
No, this is good. I mean, we need
This is the appointees.
How about this though? Can we let Senator Nass give his opening
Yeah,
remarks?
because otherwise
and
he's
then
going to
we'll
beat
take
me
questions?
up. Okay, so let's do that.
Yeah, I can roll through this pretty quick so we can get to questions. That's probably helpful. Voting, as we all know, is very important. In fact, my daughter, the first time she voted, 18 years old, senior in high school, she got home and I said, let's roll, we'll go vote. And we're both in the car, and she said, oh, Dad, just a minute, I gotta go back and get my driver's license. And I said, you don't need it. And she looked at me like a deer in the headlights, and she got it. So since then, to underscore the importance of that, I told her, for example, this last election, I said, Ashley, when you go and vote, you're gonna vote not for, but on behalf of Seaman First Class Dan O'Brien. And she said, okay. And every election I do this. And so when you're done voting, text me, and I'll tell you who he was. And so she voted and texted me and said, I cast my vote, and her husband did too. And that's when I told her, because of Seaman First Class Dan O'Brien, I said he never ever got to vote. He was killed in the battle for Guam at age 17. And so that makes a mark with her. She's never missed an election. And this is where we, legislators, in concert with we the people, need to take the fight. And I appreciate what Terry has done here with the elections. Walworth County has done that, and some other counties really going back and taking back our local government. It is critically important. The Democrats have been very, very good at this for a long time, especially after Act 10. They are ticked off and they just keep pushing on. And it is long overdue that we take the fight to them, and it is a fight. We got to take it to the enemy. As I told my colleagues in the Senate, I said we've got to get off the beach and move in. And that's what we are doing in a number of counties. The state party is pushing for that, and I think there will be more of that. And I like what has happened on some of the websites where the conservatives are identified, which helps people. But you guys are busy, others are busy, and that really, I've heard back that people have really appreciated knowing who out there should I vote for when they actually don't know, and they can look down the list to their local school board, city council, county board, and so forth. The Administrative Rules Committee, when I took over that a few years ago, I really decided to put the hammer down and not let anything sneak through, because the administrative rules carry the force of law. And what happens in legislation is that the legislature can define, say, a box. Here's where we want you to go. For example, Department of Public Instruction. We can give, or better yet, the Department of Natural Resources. When a new hunting season comes up, if we allow them to start a new hunting season, we will define it. And then it's turned over to them, and we will say you can set up the cost of the hunting license, the dates, all the detail. We don't define that, all of that in law, just like school testing. Much of that is done by the DPI, Department of Public Instruction. And so we will define what they can do. And when those rules, they will do the rules, they'll take public input, and when they come back to the Committee on Administrative Rules and also to the standing committees in the Senate and Assembly, then we will review them. And if we have found that they've gone outside the box, then that's our opportunity to stop it. And we just recently did do that on PFAS. PFAS is that firefighting foam, and the legislature passed legislation to deal with leftover PFAS. What happened was the DNR went way outside the box and went over to the Department of Health and grabbed identifying levels of different contaminants. That was not the legislature's intent. And so when that came to us, we blocked a number of those rules and said, you cannot do that. You have gone beyond the consent of the governor and what we have said you can do. So that is the power of the committee. It may even grow. There's a Supreme Court decision we're waiting on regarding administrative rules and our authority. And so if that goes our way, it will be even better as for controlling government. When Walker was in, Governor Walker, we only had one incident where we blocked a rule, and it was regarding deer hunting, and it was so close to deer hunting season and created confusion. That's it. I gotta say, Governor Walker and his department team members followed the law. In this case right now, it's really going rampant. In fact, today in the Education Committee, there were two rules up. One expands labeling of students, and the other one there's a bill out there actually too that would allow for financing, additional finances for over the internet for summer school, and then there was another administrative rule. So both of those created some concern. Senator Darling chairs the Education Committee. We are certainly going to have discussions with members on those administrative rules, because what happens is those administrative rules, if you go back and look at them in the Education Committee today, or any particular rules that go to labor or wherever they go, those rules were in the Education Committee in the Senate today. They will also be discussed in the Education Committee in the Assembly. Those committees will act. That's the first step. And then they will send to the Joint Committee, which we co-chair, to the administrative rules, and then we have the power to stop them. So that is important, and your input is certainly important along that way. The Administrative Rules Committee doesn't really get a lot of attention, but it does have a lot of power when you can step in and stop a rule. That's huge, just with the committee. The Elections Commission, which my co-chair mentioned, we are as frustrated as you, and yes, we got to, I believe changes need to happen. There are we'll get to that, the limits on the appointments of individuals there and on the head person at the Elections Commission. That clock is running, and there's a limit on how many years you can serve there. The Elections Commission decided they said when you send out special voting deputies, for example, to nursing homes or community-based residential facilities, they said because of COVID, don't worry about it. Well, that's against the law. It was against the law. So we did a hearing on it. We sent them an order. You have 30 days to get back to the committee and tell us where do you get your authority. We want to know. Well, they did a mumbo-jumbo motion back to us. And so it was within actually 48 hours, we went right back with the committee and hammered him again. And then I was prepared to go to leadership to hire a law firm if we needed to go after them. And so here's what they did. This is why changes need to happen at the Elections Commission. What they did is played the game. They played the game because they wanted to get to April 6th. That was the next election, and they did that. The clock, the next 30-day clock, got them beyond April 6th. And we ordered them to do an emergency rule. That's what we can do. Well, now they said, no, they came back, you're right, we don't have the power, we'll just forget it. Well, of course, they're beyond April 6th. So they won that one. But they will not win in the future. And that's why we need to go back. We have to keep a constant eye on that Elections Commission and take corrective action, I believe. And then there are a number of bills which I'll be able to talk about. There are.
Can I just add to that, Senator? Because the question is, and I got thought, how does that change anything, right? Because if once they do a rule, we can block it. So they don't have the guidance at that point. So once we strike it down, they can't, their guidance is gone from them saying that you can't send special voting deputies. And now they'll have to. Now they'll have to allow that. And that's next. We're going to go right down the list. We're going to go cure the ballots. We're going to find all the things that they're violating, and we're going to demand that they stop. And if they don't, then somebody needs to sue them.
By the time you sue them and you get a decision, the clock is run out again.
No, that's not true. That we sued them and we won on the capacity limits. We sued them and we won on the safer at home. I mean, we're going to sue and win on this.
Well, okay, wait. Who's, all right. All right.
I mean, these are good questions. And I'm just as fired up as you guys.
So
I mean, I'm not taking, we're on the same side. I'm just trying to answer it. And I know that the rule process is extremely complicated. The major point being, they got laws and they got rules, and they carry the same weight. Guidance, they can't govern by guidance. They can't do that. And we got to make sure that they stop it.
No,
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you what happened. Well, hold on. So, patience. The 4 points that we really need to deal with right now in the state of Wisconsin are the Trump lawsuit. The Trump lawsuit was curing ballots, ballot harvesting, being able to request a ballot, and the curing process, okay? These two are going to take up all 4 before 2022. And they're going to have to get through the rule process, which they're going to take all 4 of them up, so they have an opportunity to fight back for you to make sure that they don't use those rules inappropriately again. That's what they're doing. Okay? They sometimes, this is how our government gave us oversight. And this is the oversight committee, right here, these two. They are giving you oversight on rules that if you want to say they're abused or they were confused on what happened, whatever mumbo jumbo, as Senator Nas has said, and they are now allowed to move them through a process, and if it isn't what they like, they get to turn off the rule. They get to say, nope, that's not it. And that is the oversight that these two are now going to be able to use, plus the audit, plus more folks at the polls. Listen, there's not a silver bullet. We are going to have to work together. And we are committed. I guarantee you, every one of your Republican legislators, every one of your Republican senators, we get it. We hear from you. And that's why this room is packed tonight. We hear you. And we want to make sure you understand we are working for you. Okay?
And there, obviously, we have seen that there's an imbalance of power right now. That the executive and the agencies and the administration just do what they think they have to do for public benefit or whatever reason that they think they do, and are unwilling to work with the legislature. And one thing, thank God we did this, but when we came back after Governor Walker lost, and they said, they screamed and hollered that we did a special session. Fair enough. When Governor Evers became governor, we went back and we tried to bring balance back into the process. So now we have the ability to permanently block a rule. We didn't have that power before. We gave ourselves that power because there needs to be, if something we do in the legislature has to go to the governor and he has to sign off on it or be able to veto it, then where's the checks and balance if he can do whatever he wants without any legislative oversight, right? There needs to be checks and balances within the system. And that's why we came in and we made sure to bring some of that back. And it's a tool that we're going to be able to utilize now to make sure that the agencies and the administration and the governor is following the law. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. Follow the law.
So I want you to remember Donald Trump, right? Did the agencies make life easy for Donald Trump? Did any of them help him? I mean, some people did. That is the same thing we are dealing with. We have the swamp has now determined that they're going to try to take over. Are we fighting back? Hell yeah. He just told you he's moving it through the rules process. We're going to write the bills to make sure the governor has to tell us why he wants to be a cheater, right? Why do you want to be a cheater? We are going to use, and we're having the audit. We're going to have more of us at the polls. We're not going to be scared off by COVID this time. Listen, COVID was a perfect excuse for them to pull a lot of these shenanigans. The reason special voting deputies weren't allowed in the facilities was because of COVID. And you know what? In March, that kind of seemed like a reasonable request. But here we are a year later. So please keep in mind here that I know these committees, we are battling the swamp, and we need to make sure that, as Adam has clearly laid out, the law is the law. Oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of hands going on. All right, I gotta let Steve.
And this is important regarding the Rules Committee and people generally, and I don't expect that you would know. What happens when we object to a rule, the committee votes, we turn that objection into a bill, a legislative bill, and it's introduced into the legislature. Here's the importance of the next election. We cannot move, like the PFAS bill I mentioned, we cannot move that bill because as long as we hang on to it, that rule is objected to. Once we move the bill and send it to Tony, he's going to veto it, and that rule goes into play. Then it's alive. So to keep it dead or the doornail, we have to hang on to that rule. The importance of the next election is if, let's assume he runs again and gets elected, then the clock runs out on us. So that is very important on these rules that we are objecting to. We will hang on to them so we retain the power until the end of next year. But if a Republican governor is not elected, we are going to be in trouble on a number of these rules. Thank you.
Okay, so questions-wise, I see all the hands up. Make your question very concise. Let's be very respectful. Make it short. Let's not go on with a big rant, okay? Start right over here.
Hi, my name's Lynn Wright. I've been an election observer, I've been a poll worker, and I've been a special voting deputy.
Thank you.
Okay? So I understand a lot of what you guys are talking about, okay? So my question is, there needs to be penalties and consequences. So what are the penalties going to be to WEC for breaking the law? There is Wisconsin statutes that did not say when there's a pandemic that we cannot go into these facilities. These elderly people need our assistance, okay? And then my other short question is, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
Well, should we answer this? I'll give you a second way of thinking it. So the law is clear. The law says that the nursing homes or facilities or senior facilities do have the power to reject. They do have the power to say, no, you may not come in. I did not write that law, but that is one of the things that COVID now made us aware of as we have this conversation. And that's one of the reasons that the Trump administration didn't. So it is usual that they may have sickness in a facility or something that they would turn away. And so people know a special voting deputy is one Republican, one Democrat, and then they make sure that when the people are voting, that they have an opportunity for both parties to be there, back the process of Republicans and Democrats, as it was written in laws, every part that it's supposed to be as we have elections. So the law does allow them, the nursing facilities, to say no.
Okay. I election observed in Economowoc. I went around on my own to all 4 places, okay? And I, in Economowoc, in my own polling place, was only allowed from here to there, okay, in my own Economowoc. There needs to be things for election observing. It does no good election observing if we can't see the envelopes, if we can't actually see
So I want to let you know that is a bill that we have and actually has already been heard in both committees. But we're as legislators, we're fighting about how much closer it should be. Anybody here who did the recount in Milwaukee? God bless you. Gosh, this is a great group. Same problem, right? An insane amount of distance that they used COVID. And so yes, we do have bills addressing that. And I think the most important thing is we now are aware that 8 feet is too ridiculously far, right? Yes, right.
Okay, next.
Thank you. I'm trying to be really quick. I'm in Milwaukee County, Wauwatosa. I work in the polls in 13, 14. And I work in the polls in 13, 14, and 15. Okay? This year we got training, which we do all the time. One of their main topics of training was this voter interpretation of what the voter wanted to vote on. And what they did was they gave us very, very unclear. We asked for information. They came back with more information. They didn't try to clarify it. They made it as opaque to me. There was a big fight going on over how to interpret write-in votes. Now, here's what they set up. They said if I go in and vote for somebody that I want to vote for, and somebody else writes in a person's name for a write-in, and don't check the box that says I want to vote for a write-in, they're going to interpret that to mean that I wanted to vote for the write-in, not the person who I clearly marked. That's what they want to do, and therefore they can take those ballots at any time when they're available, draw a circle in there, put an X in there, and say, okay, we got to subtract. We're supposed to subtract off those votes.
So that's why we, as Republicans, have to be there, right? We have to be at the table when they're remaking ballots. We have to be at those tables. And I got to tell you, I've been all around this, and I appreciate you being there. And you're right, that interpretation, if you write in the name, then that does supersede it. But as I'm saying though, we need to be in these rooms as we're making these, that is the only way that you're going to guarantee transparency. Go ahead.
The name does not have to be a registered write-in. It can be an X, a check mark, a line, okay? And that takes away a vote, plus the whole concept of trying to read somebody's mind of what they did.
I agree with you. Can we talk after? Right, no, I agree with you. Can we talk after? I would love to have a couple minutes of your time, especially for anybody that was here and is like, we need a couple minutes together, okay? I'm serious. Make sure you give them a couple minutes. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Mark Musselman. I live in New Berlin. I got a quick question and a follow-up to that. I believe it takes 2/3 of the assembly to override a veto of the governor. Is that right? Right. Well, we obviously need more than what we have to override vetoes, or we're just going to keep doing that. So, where's the RPW? They could be the ones coordinating a lit drop campaign or something like that at a state level. So it's not just these people calling into the governor, but all the people that we are going
all around the state. I want to let you know, last night I was in Fond du Lac, I'm going to be in Wausau, we're going to be in Rhinelander. I mean, we are going all around the state to make sure, number one, people understand what happened, and number two, what we are going to do as a group. The RPW is, they're coming. I mean, you know, they have done lawsuits. As a matter of fact, the reason that the state is open, unlike Michigan, is because we all stood up and said, no, you're not going to close this state down, and we are going to do it for it. So, you may not get everything right, but this state is open, unlike Illinois and
tell you why the room's full. We're mad. And and there's a little bit of passion and stuff. Do you feel like you're getting a little bit of blowback? Don't take it personally. We are really mad.
You're gonna find this crazy, but people yell at us all the time. Maybe not Steve, he's really nice. They don't yell at him.
I have 2 points. One is a point, and the other one's a question, because I'm a pharmacist by background, but I actually started a company that audited deals between pharmaceutical manufacturers and health plans, kind of a dirty business. You always tick and tie, and you always have a methodology that can get back to the individual transaction. I want to be able to work on this. I don't like what I see, and the machines are a huge problem. So that's the request for how do I get involved. The first thing, my bigger question, because I don't think we fix any of this. We play a different game than they do. I want to know what happens with the corrupt officials, judges, where did that money go that Zuckerberg paid? Where did it go? Who got paid off? And what are we going to do about it? There's some people that need to go to jail.
I want to let you know, the Green Bay case, since it is in a lawsuit right now, the DA in Green Bay is a Republican, and I do expect him to take it up, what happened in Green Bay with the mayor and their chief of staff. But since they're in a lawsuit right now, he can't, and we should be able to have that determined, I think in the next 21 days. Well, I got to do one thing at a time, but Milwaukee is on the list, and we have, I think I only got like 15,000 emails from them. So it takes a long time to put it together, but it has to be a case that makes sense. What the DA in Milwaukee will do, not sure, but that's why we have outside groups. And I do want to let you know, there is a penalty and fines. You do go to jail, there is a fine, and I think, maybe as we're seeing these third-party groups, maybe we ought to have the conversation between us as legislators. What they do in Georgia is, if there is an issue, you have to redo the election. I think that is the scariest thing. Probably not at a federal level, but certainly at a local. I mean, you have to have some sort of something that scares people, right? That's what I'm saying. We are going to continue to have this conversation as we go on this year. Yes, please.
Janelle, you talked about an audit was being conducted. What is that? Is that an audit of the ballots of 2020?
It is an audit of what happened in the election, and that was done by both the Senate and the Assembly. We have an audit team. They are actually very good, and they've done a lot to do with information that when we had unemployment and the phones weren't being answered, and we've had fraud from other groups. They've done a lot. I mean, they're a check and balance for us.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to say the audit was a forensic audit of the 2020 election. We have Maricopa County in Arizona doing...
I can't do Arizona. We're going to only do Wisconsin here. You understand that? We can only do Wisconsin.
I get it. Could we do a forensic audit of the 2020 election?
So I'm going to tell you that we need to be a little careful about talking about the machines because there's been a lot of bad publicity. But yes, there is forensic capability with our audits, and we will continue to have conversations, but when we find something, we will, if and when, we will certainly continue to look into and have that investigation. Listen, we are looking all the time. But we have to be careful, right? I'll tell you a whole bunch of things. Because there's been a lot of misinformation about what has happened with our machines. All right, how many of you know how the ES&S or the Dominion works in this state? Okay, we should all know. I know that guy. So we are continuing to have conversations, but you understand, I can't make a false accusation on something I don't have. We are continuing to look. We continue to go through emails. There's multiple levels here, and you have multiple groups doing lawsuits, right? It's not just all on the taxpayer dime. We have, like I said, you have other groups coming to the state. You have Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. I mean, how many states have a Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty? I can guarantee you there will probably be additional conversations on that. We also have MacGyver Institute. How many states have a MacGyver Institute? both amazing groups that help us do our jobs, right? And they are lawyers that give us an additional outlet to when the laws have been broken. Yes, purple scarf, and I love purple scarf.
Thank you guys for being here and taking your time and for fighting for us. I have 2 points or suggestions I'd like to just pose. One is what security, digital security, I have read through the list that was on the website on the different bills. And my question is, I come from a data company and we deal in a lot of healthcare data. We have a chief information security officer. We have lots of data regulations. And my question that maybe you guys can talk about with your colleagues is, what is the state legislature doing as far as oversight with security for elections, especially in the digital age? We just talked about Zuckerberg, and this is a digital threat. This is not a paper ballot threat. What is being done to plug that hole? Because I think all of these initiatives that have been put forth are great, and we need to pursue them. But what is being done for the digital threat?
So you understand that every ballot in the state of Wisconsin does have a paper ballot to follow with it, right? No, every ballot in the state of Wisconsin. 100, you mean the new movers list? That is, so we got 2 different things here. We have, when you vote in Wisconsin, there is a paper ballot that follows with it. And that is another double. We do not, you cannot vote online or just vote in, like some states like Florida, you can just do it all in mail. But there is, you're also questioning about the list of our voters, and that is handled by our clerks in the Wisconsin Election Commission. So, well, you know, before you tell me it's all crooked, you know, can I ask you what municipality you live in? Muskego. Okay, do you think your clerk in Muskego is necessarily crooked?
I work at the elections. I don't necessarily see fraud at my elections, but I do know that there are other counties that you cannot trust them. You can't trust when
Okay, well, so, ma'am, you are yelling at me. Hold on. We will give you a chance. Remember? All right. Remember, what it was Ronald Reagan's never say bad things about other Republicans. Let us finish our questions. And you had one more question, real quick.
Yeah, I had one more question, and more of a suggestion. I think we've been talking a lot about the swamp and basically these agencies, the fourth branch, right? They're unregulated, they're unelected bureaucrats. And my question is have you guys thought about defunding them? Getting rid of it in the whole, because as a conservative, they are not, the fourth branch, this is not a part of our American government. This is a foreign idea. German political philosophy came in the early 1900s, got snuck in to our, look it up, Wilson, FDR.
No, I'm just saying, let's stay on something. So I'm saying that, I understand your point. You're right. Governor Evers asked for 300 more employees, an extra $1 billion. And that's exactly what you are right. We do have the financial purse, and we are hearing you here today. And you're right, that is a conversation about how many employees WEC has, what they're doing with it, and how they're using your money. That is a very fair question to remind us about. I agree with you.
And if I could just add, I mean, my main passion in politics is trying to hold the administration accountable and make sure that they follow the rules and make sure that the process is done correctly. And the one thing that I find is that the administration, there is a role for them to administer the law. You know, there is a role for them to, when we get in trouble, is when these agencies start setting policy. They give guidance that goes against the law. We need to make sure that we hold them accountable for the role and the purpose that they're in, which is to administer the law, not create policy, not say the law's not good, do this instead. And we need to hold them accountable, and we've gave ourselves a little bit more authority to do that. And we've seen wins on this And I keep going back to this, but we've seen wins on this, on capacity limits, on safer at home, on the mask order. They tried to use their administrative power. They tried to go around the process, and we stopped it. And this is another example of us needing to take the fight to court. And I feel your pain, because we're saying, hey, we can fix it, we can make it better in the future, but you're not doing anything for what just happened, right? And that's, I feel your pain. But all we can do as lawmakers, we have to be future looking, and we have to make sure that we don't get screwed like this again.
Very quickly, and along those lines, I understand the need for rules and committees and lawsuits and structure and all of that. But it seems to me that our opposition does what they want to do, the way they want to do it, and when they want to do it. And here's the thing. We're fighting back. I heard the term used. We got to stop fighting back, put them in a position where they're fighting back, get more aggressive, and stop being the weak kids on the table.
Well, what we are doing, and perhaps that maybe should have been covered earlier, but there are a number, I'm getting the impression that some think we're not doing anything at all, which is just not true. We're dealing with the, just off the top of my head, correcting ballots. There's legislation out there regarding correcting ballots. There's legislation about voting in the park, which Madison did. We've got legislation on indefinitely confined. Ballot harvesting, there's legislation on that. Outside money, there's so these bills are alive, they're out there, and we're moving them. The Senate just took up about 4 of them and kicked them out and over to the Assembly. And we're going to do more. On our side, Senator Strobel is pushing those. It was asked about nursing homes. As an example, I won't go through all, I think there's a couple dozen bills out there. Long-term care facilities, so when the ballots go out, the next of kin will be notified, if there is one. They will be notified that your mom is going to be getting a ballot. And these observers are coming out to get that ballot. So if my mom's in a nursing home, I know that ballot's going to be there on Monday. I can go out there, and I want to be with her when they come there. And if anybody interferes with that, you had asked about penalty, it's a Class I felony to interfere. So we are dealing with that. Indefinitely confined is another one. If you say you're indefinitely confined, and you can't do that, there are limitations on that. And if you lie, that's a Class I felony. So we're putting a hammer down. So it isn't as though these bills are on the move. And I would mention also, for those of you, not just these bills, but other bills, there's a website. I don't have it off the top of my head. It's pretty easy to get. We can get it to you. And what happens is when, for example, Senate Bill 205, long-term care facility. If you want to, in Madison, the department will, the reference bureau, I believe it is, but I can double check that. If you give them your email and say, I want to know about Senate Bill 205, every time that bill moves, they'll send you an email. And if it gets an amendment, they'll send you an email. Or the other nice thing about that, if you're interested in elections, just elections, you can put in, I want to know all bills with elections, you're going to get it. And, or if you're interested in deer hunting, I want to know about all bills with deer hunting. So you can track all these bills that are sitting out there regarding election reform or elections in general, and you can follow the whole thing. It will let you know when it moves, when it gets a vote in committee, when it goes to the rules committee, when it goes to the floor, and so forth. So anyway, the long and short of it is there are bills we're working, yes, there are penalties, pretty serious penalties.
What are the chances of passing?
Fair enough.
Perfecto Rivera is my name. I host a radio show I've been doing for 17 years at WISN.
Thank you.
And I've been a poll worker, and I used to be the chief at the
Chief Inspector. Thank you.
Inspector at the Senior Center in Washington Park.
Thank you very much.
Last
Thank
time
you.
I worked there was that night that I went home thinking that my governor won, only to find out that we got cheated out of it now.
Right.
We've talked about great things that we want to do and take civil actions and make sure that the other side is doing the right thing, correct thing. You know, these are the same people that want to take Christians out of anything that we do. Okay, so can we trust that? I would say that the number one, two comments I want to make. The criminal activity has to stop with regard to outside money that runs our elections. Outside money, you would not have to do all those civil actions if these crooks didn't get that money from the outside, the George Soros of the world, if you will. Okay? And so that is number one. And then the second thing, having worked at that election poll and having worked for MPS in my history, is that the number one civil rights issue in America right now is choice schools. And people like Gwen Moore, a racist, does not want her community to get educated well and understand how to be a good patriot in this country. To be lectured yesterday by our president, who gave the eulogy for the Ku Klux Klan senator, Robert Byrd, and he's lecturing us on race relations in our country. How did we get here?
Super thanks for being a chief inspector. That is the final vote. Being a chief inspector at a facility, he's the guy that gets to kick you out if you act up. He's the guy that makes the decisions. So being a poll worker, being an observer, chief inspectors, we need you as Republicans as well. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Billy Sampson. I'd like to also thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time. I think Mr. Nass had alluded to some of the problem comes from the Wisconsin Election Commission. And Mr. Nalen, I emailed you and you were nice enough to give me a detailed response, and maybe you can remind me, because it was a bit confusing for me and maybe everyone here. From what I understand, there's 6 people on that team, which are supposed to be 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, and from what I understand, there's truly only 1 conservative that's on that team right now.
I think he's here tonight too.
Okay.
Bob, you want to stand up? Bob Spindell. Bob, thanks for coming out today.
So I'm just trying to understand what you or what we can do about this team that seems to be, if we get to the root cause, this seems to be a huge part of the problem, right? Because so they're making these rules that you're having to fight off all the time. What can we do about them?
So the WEC board is 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. The Republican, the majority leader, Speaker Voss, and then at that time Speaker Fitzgerald put Bob in, and they get the opportunity. If you are unhappy with any of our members, I think you need to either reach out, which is now the majority leader is Devin Lemieux, which would be Bob's appointment, and Dean Knutson comes from Speaker Voss. And then actually the 2 clerks, they are picked, basically we give the Republican Party and the Democrat Party gives 3 names, and the governor picks the clerk. So we do not have any authority over the clerks on either side.
Well, if I could just add, and you know, it's a great question, and it's something we talk about a lot. Ultimately, like Janelle just said, the appointments come from leadership, but we certainly have influence. One thing that I have tried to think about and consider when we're looking at this strategically is I think the number one thing, and I keep going back to this, is we need to make sure that WEC and other agencies don't govern on guidance. This leads to problems. And I think that if we, with the people we currently have, I think we can convince them of that argument. And I think we can win with the people we have. Although I understand where you're coming from, I understand that people might differ in that opinion. I've served with Representative Knutson. I think he was wrong on a lot of the decisions that he made and that he voted on. But at the end of the day, I think he is someone that can understand where we're coming from in terms of governing by guidance. And when we sent that letter in terms of special voting deputies, now granted, they played the game like Senator Nass said, and they extended it past this last election, but they did listen to us and they did agree that they would utilize the rulemaking process. So I'm optimistic we can make these changes with the people currently there.
I'll just say, I'll give you my personal opinion. I think you got to cut the head of the snake off, and when the person that's in charge right now, when their term is up, and I don't remember if it's 4 or 6 years, I just, are there people there that are nice people? Yeah. Are there legislators nice people? But sometimes you just gotta go.
Nice people.
Well, let me finish, Jesus. But you got people, well, there are people that are human beings that are nice. Are they doing their job? No. And those are the people that have to go. And so, when that comes up, that is, as has been mentioned, a discussion, and there needs to be changes. There's no doubt about it.
What's the term again? You said 6
Hold
years?
on, we got a line at the back, so yes. Yeah.
Actually, Actually, it's based on what I'm hearing, and just want to make a rough statement. First off, thank you guys for coming. We appreciate this step that you guys are taking. Because don't clap, I want to continue talking. Because we appreciate the step that you guys are taking. Brief history on me, my dad did elderly care for 30 years, diehard Democrat. I followed that, but I voted for Trump in 2016 because I love my country, and that's what I love seeing in this room. But what I realized recently is that I only took up the fight because it came to my door on a propaganda with my mother-in-law and an issue I'm dealing currently with my mother. But I realize now, I'm a Democrat looking in here, and I joined the Republican Party and have shifted. But you in this room who I hear passionately saying, what can I do? And nothing's being done. Realize there's another room of Democrats telling them how we are wrong. My dad stopped talking to me for 6 weeks because I'm wrong and he doesn't even want to accept it. And this is a man who fought for rights for 30 years. So when I sit in this room and I hear the passion, please realize it is our fault that we are here. It is, and Senator, I appreciate you voting since you were 18. I did the same. But what I want to say is, voting is just the first step here. You guys act as if they're going to come in here and walk and do everything. I'm an ex-Democrat going, wow, look at this. I'm sitting in, if I came in a room as a Republican with my friends, they would all chastise me just for listening to you. And you ask me, what do you do? One of the people that stood in this room in November shoved something in my face and said, listen to this. And because of that, I now know Janelle. I'm going through the things that they're talking about that they didn't know were there. And it's because we as a country have taken a step and thought, hey, I voted, I did my due diligence. So don't yell at them as if they're sitting here the enemy. We are the problem. You who are in here that are passionately yelling, become involved then. Become involved.
Hi, my name is Tim Foreman. I'm from Jefferson County, but
We still let you in even if you're...
I was an election observer in Dane County this last election, and my question basically is that we...
Be quick, we got a whole room of people, so we got to get to the point tonight.
I appreciate that you're doing things to try to fix the situation. We all want to get to one legal person with one legal vote, honest elections, but the Constitution, Article 1, gives the legislature the ability to set these rules.
Yep.
And I don't understand why we're pushing legislation that's going to get vetoed by the governor when it's the Constitution that says
That's why there's a lawsuit. Yep, and that's why there's a lawsuit.
Why can't we do direct rulemaking about rules that say no central counts, no digital adjudication, IDs must be presented?
Because we're a split government, and I have to deal with a governor right now that is probably going to make things difficult. I mean, we're still a split government.
But doesn't the Constitution trump the governor?
I'll tell you what. We can have this conversation, but I still have to write. We will go through the WEC process of moving them through the Rules Committee. That's oversight. That is what they will do. We will also make sure we follow up with bills for loopholes, things that we are not in our Constitution. There is nothing in our rules that say about taking third-party money, because our forefathers never would have thought of it. I mean, it's crazy. So we need to make these adjustments. We are pursuing everything we can, and we are here tonight to hear you, because if there's other things we're missing, we will pursue it.
And just to answer your technical question, no, we can't introduce rules from the legislature. The rules, we cannot. The rules come from the agencies and the administration. We have oversight over those rules. We can introduce legislation and laws.
Right.
Well, I think his point was, if the Constitution says it's the legislative responsibility, then you can't do it because the governor's going to veto it. Couldn't there be things that he is not allowed to veto that are constitutional?
No, we don't. Remember, our forefathers made government. It's a slow process, and that frustrates the hell out of me, right? I mean, let's move forward. Let's do this. This is transparent. This is good government. But our forefathers wanted checks and balances, and sometimes our checks and balances hold us from holding up good legislation. It's true.
I think with the last question, I think the frustration is your interpretation of rules would be legislation, right? You're saying that we can introduce legislation.
Okay, so I'm going to interject really quick because I finally have the microphone. Whoop, whoop.
Okay, but you got to be quick. We got a lot of people. Get to the point.
The point is, a lot of Republicans will never donate back to the Republican Party after seeing that the Republican Party turned their back prior to the election.
You know what? All right, man, I'm going to ask you to, that is insulting. And I'll tell you,
Honesty is not insulting.
Hold on one second.
Because I'm an advocate for the Republican Party. I'm an advocate for the Republican Party. I know how important knowledge is. I spread the word. I was out there. I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking the Republican Party. The feedback that I get from people that I work with, from neighbors, they said I've been a lifelong Republican, and that's why the polls showed in April the turnout was shitty at the end of the day, because people lost faith in the election and the Republican Party.
So you're going to give up on liberty. You're just going to give up on liberty. We're just going to move on. So I'm just understanding, when you come here and say we didn't work hard enough, we didn't do enough, everybody in this room did doors, we put everything into it. And I understand you're frustrated, but to tell us that you're done with us, then I'm going to tell you that you're just giving up on liberty. Because without us, I can guarantee you that the other party is going to make sure that your vote isn't heard at all.
Before I move to the next person, I'd just like to rebut that by saying that you might think that's happening at the state level and whatnot, but I don't know what you were saying about April, because we won 100 races in this town. We won 100 races out of 118 races. That was done by hard work of people who believed in what we're doing, who got out and worked and gave money, and we won. So let's clear the air there.
Just to calm the waters a bit, my name's Yvette.
Can you go a little closer? I can barely hear you.
Sure. And move up closer?
Ooh, look at that. All right. Nice. Wait a minute.
I feel like I'm on a runway. Okay, but just simple things that I'm thinking of. As far as the audit, can you or do you have already instituted plans that can make it very open and transparent? Will there be cameras perhaps that can be able to view it? What kind of steps are you putting in place so that when we have an audit in Wisconsin, that we will then be able to reinvigorate those individuals that may feel a little bit like that and give them a little bit more hope, that they can see like things are happening, things are moving in this direction. I just want to encourage you as a group to be as open as possible, even making it very plain in many places, not just one website, but maybe even commercials or billboards and things of that nature, just so that the people can then begin to regain that hesitancy that they may have had from previous elections. Because we need everybody to vote. We don't need just a few. We need everyone to change something around.
So keep in mind that when I say an audit, it is an audit of what happened. It is not necessarily a recount. It is an audit of the election process. I do not have control over it because that is done by our auditors, and like I said, they have different skills that they will be bringing to the table. So we don't get authority in how it moves, but it is not like a recount. I want to make sure you're right. An audit can be a recount, and that is not what it is.
So can it be transparent?
Well, it will be a report. It will be something that everybody can read, and they'll make a presentation, and you will be able to watch it on Wisconsin Eye. I can guarantee you that.
And there is a bill out there to have more cameras in the process, right? Body cameras, and yeah, so it's a great idea. And also, just when people raise their hand, I believe there is a line forming it back for questions, just so you guys are aware.
I'll finish with him, and I'm gonna swing up there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Janelle, thank you for being here. I'm hearing more fire from you than I've heard from anybody else in the Republican Party to date, and I've been screaming about this stuff for 10 years. My name's Rick Carr, I'm from Pewaukee. I've been an election observer since 2004.
Thank you very much. Yes,
I've seen a number of presidential elections. I never saw anything like what happened this time around. I was at 14 different polling locations, and I never saw any surge whatsoever. Every time in the past when a presidential election, it gets to be noon, I'm at North Division High School. 2 divisions over there, or 2 wards, used to be 4. There's always a surge of people coming in during lunch. Nothing. Nothing. I'm at South Division High School, right at 3:30, 4 o'clock, when people are starting to come off of work. No surge whatsoever. I ended the day at Marquette University, at the Alumni Center at Marquette University. I was there for the last 50 minutes of the election. 1 person voted. 1. It's 2 wards. In every prior presidential election, there were tons of students coming in at the very last minute. You had to send somebody over to stop the line at 8 o'clock. None of that occurred. Yes, I have a question. I appreciate what you're doing on these legislation side of it, but I think that that's not anywhere near enough. Our opponents have a greater ability to cheat than we have an ability to get the vote out. And we need to do whatever we need to do. This poor lady ahead of me was saying that she wasn't going to put any more money into the Republican Party, and I was feeling the same way, because I want, until we prosecute people, the people on the other side of this deal think it's a damn joke. It's fun. It's fun to cheat. They think it's a game. And we need to put felonies on these people so that it's no longer a game. And if we don't, these people aren't prosecuted and people don't have felonies, you got students at UWM. They vote at home, they vote there. I know, just a minute. If these students think it's a joke, they can vote at home, absentee, and then they vote the same day. We need to hire some people to do the work, to get the details together so that we can prosecute people. If we don't prosecute people, then all the get out the vote efforts in the world are not going to win any more elections. Thank you for listening.
One of the pieces of legislation, because we've had a problem with the prosecution, for example, let's say something happens in Dane County, well, we know what's going to happen there, probably nothing. And so one of the bills would allow you to go to an adjacent county. If the problem were to occur like in my county, Walworth, I could go to Jefferson, the Jefferson DA, or bordering county. So that expands the opportunity to put the hammer down on people that break the law regarding the election process.
Okay, and so you understand, and so you understand, we are legislators, which means we write laws. Now, when it comes to the folks that, it is the DAs, and we have, I can't give away all my goodies all the time or I get in trouble, but we do have some DAs that do have some cases that you are absolutely right, that people are going to be, they're going to be fully prosecuted to the level of the law. But it takes a while. It takes a while. We do in this state, we use the ERIC system, so if you vote twice at UWM, and on election day, we will catch you. If you vote here in California or here in Florida, but it does take some time. That is handed over to the DA, and depending the community, we have been having a conversation with DAs to make sure that they are doing their job too, because we all need to work together.
Craig Detto, Brookfield. My question is, I noticed in your statement, Adam, that that the Election Commission played games delaying and delaying and delaying. What I want to know is, what are you guys willing and able to do to shorten the time between the commission of an offense and the time you go to court? And what are you willing to do to make sure that you have attorneys ready at the time that the offense is committed, rather than after the process was played out and saying, oh, wait a minute, we might have to have an attorney to follow up on this issue. We need to have a much shorter time between the commission of offense and the time that people are starting to be held accountable in court.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of that is dictated by the court themselves, what court you're in, what the offense is. There's many, as you know, there's quite a few different things. But I'll tell you that this group is realizing now that they've made their first rules committee, that they now understand the process, and that they would probably do things a little bit differently with the time frames. Many of it is determined by, is already in statute. But I also want to remind this room, this is how bad cancel culture is. You know the Trump lawsuit, Jim Trubis, who took it, one of the two lawyers that took it, turned it down 2 times. And the reason he turned it down 2 times is he figured other lawyers would take it. There are a lot of lawyers in this state, most lawyers in this state will no longer represent it because of cancel culture. They could lose their job. This is where we are. So when you tell us, remind us to fight, remember there's a lot of people that are cheering that we fail too.
Yes, hi. I'm Artis Cerny, I'm from Pewaukee, Wisconsin. You've all heard tonight about the WEC board, the 3 Democrats and the 3 Republicans, but you haven't heard about the staff. There's an executive director of the WEC, Megan Wolf. She is the right hand of the Democrat Party in the state of Wisconsin. We have to take her out. Now, when they came up with,
be careful. Let's not just take her out. Let's be a little careful on that. You know,
and Mr. Nass, I have a question for you. You talked about how they did guidance. Do you call voting in a park drop box or drop boxes or voting by mail? That's not guidance. That's changing election law. She is guilty of changing election law without the legislator passing the law. Can we go after her, please?
Okay, so let's look at the... I take it that there's not a Megan Wolf fan club out here. Keeping that in mind, we do have a lawsuit from a citizen who actually is addressing the ballot box drop boxes, and that is in court. I mean, you have some really amazing citizens. We have some really amazing groups that are going after some of what people would consider low-hanging fruit. So again, we may not be part of that. There are outside groups that you may not wish to fund, depending how much you like us or not. But that allows, the lawsuits are happening. I know they're not fast enough, but it does give us clarification. I think the guy's name is Jerry or Jarek or something like it. It is in the papers. We can talk. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify guidance. And it sounds like it's functioning as a rule. Yeah. And how do you deal with guidance? If it's a rule or if it's not a rule, or just to clarify.
That is exactly the multi-million-dollar problem.
That's where we ran into the problem with the Elections Commission. Megan Wolf. Megan Wolf, decided because of COVID, they could just provide guidance. And that's where the committee said, no, you cannot. So, and this is where the timeline, I understand it, 30 days we gave them to tell us, where do you get that authority? The other interesting aspect is that our state attorneys, legislative council, did a nice document, and they're nonpartisan, and they said it was very clear there is no authority that the Elections Commission has to provide that guidance and ignore sending out observers. They cannot do that. It was black and white. And so that's when we gave them 30 days to tell us, where do you get your authority? And Bob, I'm sure would know that there was a motion they sent back to us. It was a bunch of, as I said, mumbo jumbo. So within 48 hours, we went right back at them and said, we will give you 30 days to do an administrative rule. Well, then the election passed, which got them beyond the election. No, I know. It's frustrating for us, too. If I could have done it in a day, that'd be great. Can't do it. 30 days. And those are the rules that have been there for, I don't know how long before I got there. So 30 days was 30 days. It got beyond us, but Megan Wolf, I personally think, has got to go when the time comes up. That's a good question. I'd have to ask if they can be bounced out right now. I don't think so.
That is the Senate, that is the placement, right? Senate, you guys are the one that actually oversee Megan's ability.
I'd have to, I can look, I would have to see if they can be bounced
We're
out.
hearing you, that's why we're here, we get it, and this is exactly what we want to hear from you. I mean, we want to hear from you.
But yeah, that's exactly right what Nat said about the guidance. I mean, that's the crux of the issue, right? And once they take it away from guidance and go through the administrative rulemaking process like they're legally required to do, that's when we have oversight to be able to strike it down. And that's what's so important about making sure that they actually follow the rules and go through the process, because then we have the oversight to block it.
Hold on, no, we have to
Take that up. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Debbie Keck. I'm from Watertown. First of all, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. It's great. I have questions about the audit. When you say forensic, are you going to be analyzing the paper, the machines, and
I don't have
everything
any
else?
control in the audit that is done by the auditors. They follow the thread, and when they find something, that's where they continue and give a report. Do I think this audit will be the be-all, end-all of what we all want? No. But will it maybe provide some additional insight that we didn't have before?
But don't we have guidance to give to the auditors? I fully agree that you should be you shouldn't have any sway in whatsoever in seeing it, but just follow Arizona, what they're doing. They're doing the full forensic audit of the machines, of the paper. They're also taking the people
Okay, but
going out and
okay, they have a completely different set of rules. How they did their election was way, I would say, so let's not compare us, because there's so many, it's apples to oranges. So I'm not trying to be...
I totally get that,
Okay.
but I think just because we've seen so much happen in this country, we want to see the truth. And whatever that truth is, that's fine.
You want more.
But we want to see. We know that there's ways to do it, especially with the paper, because we had unprecedented amount of mail-in ballots where random voters could go in. So we just want to know, was this an actual legitimate ballot? Does it have a chain of custody? Things, I mean, when you have someone in Green Bay.
So we have a lot of laws like that, but I do want to let you know a thing. Donald Trump spent over $3 million to do the recount in Madison and Milwaukee. That means we have everything. Him paying that money means we have every piece of paper and we have access to everything. So we have more time. And also from the end of an election, we have 22 months for every piece of paper is still available to you, the public. That is law, so we are going through things. We have different groups. I don't want to give away what they're doing and what they're coordinating. So there are other groups, as I've reported out there, that are looking into exactly some of the things we're talking about.
And the audit committee was the ones that make that request. So it's not from the legislature. And just so you know, there was specifics in there as to what to look at, but there was also some general language because they didn't want to make it so narrow that they said, hey, focus on this, and you potentially miss some fraud over here. So they included some general language to allow the investigators to follow the thread wherever it may lead. And there's also some specific language that was included by the audit committee to look into X, Y, and Z.
We can get you a copy afterwards.
Hi there. I'm Mike Brown, and I was a Trump observer and
Where?
in Milwaukee.
Thank you very much. Did you have any fun?
No, it wasn't very fun at all.
But if there had been more of us with you, we could have had fun.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, my question is, the Trump attorneys were pretty specific on looking at the envelopes for the addresses and the indefinitely confined. I saw hundreds of ballots in a particular ward that I'll be more than happy to give, where the ballots looked exactly unique enough that you could tell that they were the same, that they were copied, they were folded.
So I'll tell you what, if you want to have that conversation with me, I would be glad to, because we do have some other groups that are doing something similar. So if you want to grab me on the side, I would be glad to give you my cell number and we can talk about it. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have heard that, and that is, I believe, we don't have anything to do with the lawsuits, but we do believe that that's part of a lawsuit, that exactly.
Hi, I'm Martha Purnell, and I work at the Brookfield as a poll worker, absentee central count, all of last year, and was prepped before November. Oh, get ready, there'll be 13,000 ballots. It's a big deal in our normal Brookfield. 20,000. That morning that I was there, and Kelly announced 20,000 with 3 rejections. I sat there going, what? In my mind, how can there only be 3 rejections out of 20,000 because of just my simple 3 other elections before that working in? Then this last one, she calls to tell me, we don't need you. Okay, so you don't need me at Central Count, so I worked all day long from 6:30 till 9:30 at Burleigh Elementary helping. And then to find out the 3,000 thing dumped, between 7 and 8, 3,000 ballots dumped in Brookfield. What the heck's going on? Everybody was sent home at 3 o'clock. I wasn't there because I was at Burleigh. But what is going on? So that's my question. I can get to 4 things. What's this? It's kind of related. But the time, just wondering about legislation, and I'm not mad at you all at all. I lived in East Troy for 17 years before here. So thank you, Senator Nass. Yes, but time before election to vote, early voting. Just wondering about what you all are doing about that.
So it used to be, hold on, it used to be 6 weeks. Governor Walker, and that was actually a lawsuit, and for this election, it was the first time it was 2 weeks. And that is constitutionally from other states, going from 6 weeks to 2 weeks is a win. There's definitely a win to it.
So I just wanted to check on that. And then just wondering, these vote counts totals during the election that suddenly is able to let the other side know that, oh, we need 20,000 more or whatever. What is this about, these votes? Because they come around to us, even at Burleigh, oh, we need to know how many you're having, how many. What is this? And then the absentee ballot dumping, that whole thing. Can you address, like, what are we doing about that?
So it does seem that a lot of these CTCL people were there with the machines making counts as we went forward. Yeah. But the reason that Milwaukee always has this last minute dump is Milwaukee uses Central Count, and at 8:01 out of the 200 some wards, and Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, at 8:01 they actually move all of their ballots. They have 4 trucks, north, south, east, west, that pick up 50 wards, and they basically spend the next 4 hours till 1 o'clock in the morning picking up ballots. And so then at 1 o'clock they show up with these 4 trucks and they dump these ballots, and that's when everybody goes, what the heck, right? So we have had some conversations about should you be able to drop off your ballot, because it's a huge problem for the clerks on election day. Election day is election day. You either put your ballot in the machine, and so people understand, these absentee ballots take up so much more time than the old days when we originally would just put the ballots in the machine, right? So much more confidence. You've touched your ballot, it went in the machine. Won't have the fight about the machines, but that was the confidence process. Now, when they're put in the envelope, they have to check the envelope, and if the envelope gets slit, it has to be remade, did the voter know what they were doing? So this is what is taking hours and hours and hours compared to the old days when we would just put your own ballot in. So, I mean, yes, this is what takes so much more time. It doesn't seem like it would, but then when you multiply that times 60% of this election, of the 2020 election, 60% was done by absentee, people who put their ballots in an envelope.
We have two, well, there's more among these, SB 204 and SB 203. 203 and 204 dealing with security absentee ballots delivered to the clerk, and the other one is absentee ballot uniformity.
No, listen, sir.
We got to give him a chance, yeah. You've been waiting, yes.
Hi, my name is Deb Schrader, and I have worked in the Muskego election since 2012.
Thank you.
I usually process the absentee ballots, and I can say there's dual control with that in Muskego. There's 2 people on each ballot. We're verifying addresses, envelopes, all that good stuff.
Thank you very, very much.
On average, it takes, to do it properly, about a minute per ballot between the 2 of us. So with that said, the night Scott Walker supposedly lost, when we saw 10, 20,000 ballots come in and they were counted in 45 minutes, there's no way these ballots were legally counted and done properly, for one. And for 2, like you just addressed on with the last person, there has to be something to stop the nonsense of Milwaukee going last and waiting to see how many they need to cheat and win. It's not obvious to you, it's obvious to all of us. So you need to get that taken care of.
I think a lot of us have been talking about that no numbers come in until all of the numbers come in.
And lastly, for this last COVID, whatever crap show we had for this election, I received 4 ballots in the mail, absentee, that I did not request.
Okay, so let's be real clear. What was mailed out was not ballots. What was mailed out was a request. So what happened was, because the large municipalities, Madison, Milwaukee, were going to send ballots to everybody, there were decisions made to send everybody a request because of COVID. It was not a ballot, it was a long form, it looked like it.
Okay, well I got 4 of them.
Okay.
And then I'd also just like to say that the WEC, you all know that it's a problem, but you don't seem to know how to get rid of the problem, and you don't seem to know the terms of the people and how we can get them handled, because quite frankly, they were supposed to remove 200 and some people from the voter rolls before the election. They refused to do it, 200,000. They refused to do it. That didn't get handled before the election. They allowed voting in the park. They didn't allow there were 2 candidates, third party, that were not allowed on the ballot, that they didn't allow. Well, I wasn't done, but they allowed so many things.
All right, let's talk, okay? The voting in the park was a lawsuit done by Speaker Voss and Speaker Fitzgerald to bring it to an end. And unfortunately, it took a week and a half, but it did happen. There was a lawsuit brought by your party to make sure that the balloting in the park came to an end. That was done. Okay, so I'm sorry, what's your next question then? Okay, the voter rolls. Let's talk about. All right. Are you gonna let me respond, or remember, there's a relationship. You ask a question and I get a chance to respond. The voter rolls. All right. The voter rolls. We put in a new system called ERIC, and in that new system called ERIC, it was to remove all of these voters. There's a 4-year rule. After 4 years, if you have not voted, you are to be sent a card. And if you don't return the card, you're thrown out. Or I don't want to say thrown out, you're removed from the rolls. And it really doesn't matter in Wisconsin because we have same-day voting, right? If anybody talks to you about voter suppression, we have same-day voting. So
We have COVID,
Okay, are you gonna let me finish on the new motor? Okay. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Of course we want of course we want to have a clean voter roll. That is exactly why Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty took them to court when they didn't think that they were handling it properly. And we just heard from the court that was just come under a Hagendorf rule that the clerks are now their clerks are the ones to make those changes as we go forward. The next meeting that Bob Smidell will probably be in will talk about removing those voters who have not been on before. They're removed every 4 years. This is something that happens every 2 years, but it's on a 4-year. I mean, listen, I understand we want to have the rolls as clean as possible. All right, go ahead.
They weren't removed prior to the 2020 election, and there were 2 candidates that were third parties that were not allowed on the ballot.
Correct.
That was siphoned votes from Biden, and they were not allowed on the ballot.
Okay, so they came in at 501 and the WEC made 5.00.13. They came in too late. I mean, why didn't he come in a day later? Instead of yelling at me about it, why don't you look at his team and say, why did you come in a day early? I get it.
It was a matter of seconds later, and
I understand that, but okay. No, we're just arguing now. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
My name's Ray Peranchlan, I'm from New Berlin. Thank you for coming this evening. I noticed it struck a nerve when it was mentioned that we were holding the legislator responsible for the last election. I like to say I also had those same frustrations with the Republican Party in our legislature. I like to tell you why. I donate money to the Republican Party, to every Republican candidate that I can. I volunteered as an observer in the city of Milwaukee. That was a very disgusting and frustrating experience, to tell you the truth. And then there's the results of the election. It was, we all feel there was fraud, and so it's the results of the election that we're frustrated with. And our Constitution says that the state legislatures are responsible for the oversight of our elections, so that's the only place we don't want to go.
No, that is the clerk that is responsible. It's very clear in our rules. So, hold on. It is the clerk that has that full responsibility. So it is. You mean you want to make sure that your clerks are following the rules as well?
Okay, but you're responsible for the laws, for enacting the laws, and I'm sure that if you see the laws are being violated, that you would take some action. There'd be something that you could have done. And that's maybe for misinformed, then that's on us. But that's where I'm at, and that's a lot of people would be saying it's the state legislature that has that authority, provides that oversight, and that's who we hold accountable. And if that's wrong, you can help to clarify that.
Sure, no problem. So the legislature writes the rules. I have no power to enforce them. That comes from your DA. If a clerk is not following the laws that are put in forth by statute, because she is I want to say she, they are the only ones, he or she, that is responsible for making sure that election is held. It is not the job of the legislature. We have oversight on WEC. We have oversight if there's problems with the law that we can maybe write new ones to stop loopholes. But the true power of the force, the police force, would come from a DA and a sheriff. That's when if we find fraud, that is who we go to, and they will then take it to court and we'll go to law.
Well, thank you. I just have one last thing.
Sure.
I'm 79 years old. 40 years ago, my boss told me you can be right, but you can be dead right. And I feel like the Republican Party is on the right side of issues, and they're right. But we're not getting the results, and we're being overrun by this other party. And I'm just saying that it seems like you need to have the passion and the sense of urgency, and you need to express that. So we're here tonight because we're interested, but there's a lot of people out there that don't hear what you're saying. So your communication has to be out there. You need to make our public aware of what you're doing and our passion, but on a more broader basis to get the people to be supportive of you in what you're doing.
It's amazing the Journal Sentinel doesn't talk to me very often. Trying to figure out why. Or Steve, or Adam, they never want to talk about these things. As a matter of fact, you have not seen any of these lawsuits in the paper, right? we're coming and talking to you and telling that we have these other partners because nobody wants to talk about them. Imagine why.
If I could just add, and look, we feel your frustration, right? We're frustrated too. And that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. This is not an easy thing to get up here and try to do our best to answer these questions and be as transparent with you as possible. And that's why we're here, you know, because we understand it. We understand you want answers in your bag, and so are we. Our guy lost too. You gotta remember, we're all on the same team here. And I understand where you're coming from in terms of, look, what is going on with the other side just breaking laws and going around you guys? And think about how frustrating that is, right? I mean, we are lawmakers, and when we pass forward these policies and then the other side just blatantly ignores them or does what they can to get around them, I mean, lesson learned, and we need to make sure that we answer that every step of the way, and that's why we're here. That's why we're fighting. That's why we're going to continue this fight, and we're not just saying, oh, I guess it's over. I guess we lost. No, we got to win still. We got to win, and we got to unite. We got to get behind a policy moving forward. What's our strategy? And that's why we're here today, to tell you this is our strategy. We're doing legislation. We're fighting through the administrative rulemaking process, and there's lawsuits out there that are currently going through the process. So there's a fight going on, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're taking the time to make sure that we answer this call. But Janelle's right. Unfortunately, we don't get the press that the other side does, and a lot of times it's just negative stuff towards us. You know, and even these bills about we want to stop third party coming in and administrating our elections, and they're trying to tell us we're suppressing votes, right? I mean, that's the narrative out there, that we're trying to voter suppression, and it's incredibly frustrating. So we feel your pain, we understand it.
Don't listen to them.
And that's why we're here listening to you and working with you guys, and not out there trying to get along with the other side. We're here for you.
My name is Jeff Schmittinger. I've been on the bottom end of the political food chain for close to 30 years. I've been on the town board in Genesee.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The one thing that I've learned by being on the board is that every elected official that pays a lot of attention to money. And that part of the problem that I see is that, you know, the rules can be ignored until after the election and the effect takes place where they get what they want. I would suggest that what you guys do is institute a law or rule, whatever, that any municipality found to be in violation of election laws loses state aids for 2 years. The other thing I would like to suggest with respect to the nursing home situation, my wife was the director of nursing at the nursing home in Waukesha here, and that every one of them has a doctor that's part of that facility. I would suggest that the doctor has to sign that somebody is permanently confined, and if it's found that they fraudulently signed a form, that they lose their medical license.
We need to address and definitely confine, but there are some HIPAA regulations that we need to be careful on a little bit, so we're still working through that. And I'm going to tell you, Senator Nas is going to refer to a couple of bills that we have, so that's something we need to find out to make sure that there's not more loopholes going forward. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Alan McWett, I'm from Waukesha. To address the first question I had was regarding the agencies. It seems like you have a structural problem where the agencies can put rules in place, and then you have to go scramble and find them. Why are they not submitting the rules to legislation first?
They do submit them. There is two different, I don't want to get too in the weeds of this, but there is permanent rules that get submitted to us first, and there's emergency rules that go into effect right away. When they do emergency rules, a lot of times, and we have to step in right away and permanently object to them. So there is times where we do have to pay attention and make sure we're taking our oversight seriously, because when they do emergency rules, we have to step in and do it right away. But if it's a permanent rule, they do have to submit it first. And there's public hearings and there's a whole process similar to legislation.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is more nationally focused. Wisconsin is one of the states affected by federal rules going in regarding elections. HR 1 is one that comes to mind. Gun control is another. It seems to me, ever since the John Doe investigation, the Republican Party of Wisconsin has kind of kept their head down too far and been afraid to address big issues. So when I think of what I would like my legislature to be doing, it'd be playing proactive instead of reactive. So there should be laws in place saying the states have sovereignty, do they not? So you can say whatever gun control laws, whatever HR 1 says, doesn't apply to Wisconsin. Can you not do that?
So we actually do have one on the Second Amendment coming forward. And again, I can guarantee you that your Republican legislature will have a majority and get it through. I don't know what Tony Evers will do, but again, what an opportunity to put him on his desk, and he can tell the rest of us how he thinks the Second Amendment is important in Wisconsin.
And I just want to add, I know we're here for elections, and I know we want to talk about that, but since I've been there in the assembly, you know, we have looked at big issue items. I mean, we passed $8 billion of tax cuts. We've had a balanced budget this entire time. We're running $1 billion surplus. We've done the right to work. You know, we did Act 10. We did prevailing wage reform. We did concealed carry. We did voter ID. You know, I would argue that in the last 8 years, we've accomplished more than any other state when it comes to conservative reforms. And I'm proud of that. And I think, you know, the frustrations on elections, and I understand that, but I would defend our record against any other state in terms of big picture items that we've tackled under Governor Walker and our Republican legislature.
I mentioned quickly the previous person on indefinitely confined. That has to be under legislation. It's Senate Bill 206, and that would have to be taken under oath and confirmed by a professional, a doctor, medical professional, and if you lie, it's a Class 1 felony. So that's
Bart Williams. I've served on 3 public school boards 4 terms. I also volunteered at Central Fraud in Milwaukee.
Thank you very much, Bart. We really appreciate it. Yep.
And I did recount in Madison and Milwaukee, and I was at Central Fraud on April 6th. One thing for the Republican Party that seriously needs to happen, I got a copy of the sign-on log from November 3rd. There were 2 Democrats that lived in Milwaukee. The rest were from Chicago, LA, New York, Portland, and Seattle. What I'm saying here is this. Republicans need to pay election observers. I mean, I'll show up voluntarily. We won't get the big numbers unless we pay our election observers like the Democrats are doing. If we don't face that reality, we're going to keep losing elections. That's just the way it is.
You know what, Bart? I think that's a very good suggestion, and I think I've had that conversation with the party before, and we agree.
Okay. So my question here is, will you commit here now to getting rid of all ballot drop boxes which have been proven to promote serious, widespread election fraud?
Bart, that's the lawsuit that we discussed. I said a private citizen has taken that lawsuit up, so we don't really get to comment on it because we don't want to show any favoritism. So that is a lawsuit right now going on.
Okay, but if it doesn't happen, I'm not asking us to commit to it. Will you please, because that is a huge way they cheat.
I agree.
I'd like to just add to that. Senate Bill 209 is a ballot security act by Senator Darling and Representative Stephan. So you can look that up. It deals with exactly that, the drop boxes.
Do you get totally rid of drop boxes, even in municipal buildings?
No.
Totally?
That goes back to the lawsuit.
It would limit it to a municipal building, and there would be protection. Well, otherwise you got them scattered all over the place, which is bad.
Good evening.
Artis, please.
Go ahead, please.
I'm Janice Johnson. I live in
Hey, Janice, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Janelle? Thank you so much.
I really appreciate all your hard work. I think
These guys work harder than me, they really do.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, here we go. I think in this room you find a lot of frustration, anger, and urgency. And I'm right there with you all. But I have a real hard problem with the fact that 2 electors out of the 10 that went to Washington in December, actually in January, was permanently confined. Now, I thought if you're supposed to be confined, your butt is supposed to be in your house, and you aren't supposed to be doing anything. And it seems like from Wisconsin to DC, there's quite a bit of distance. So is anybody suing them? Because these are people well known in the community. And
So you have to remember that, I don't have a magical pile of money, but I think it is a conversation that you could have with Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty or the MacGyver Institute, but I don't have the power, and neither of us up here, to have the party determine what lawsuits they would go after. And like I say, in Wisconsin, we've had some really amazing people step forward and do that. I think that's a fair conversation.
There seems to be a national trend, and it follows in Wisconsin also, where votes are counted into the night and into the early morning, and it seems to go the Democrats' way, largely. And that's what happened in Wisconsin as well. And Janelle, when you were talking about trucks going around, 12 o'clock at night with ballot boxes, it just doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't.
And I think there's something wrong there. So, like you indicated, something's going to be done about it. I remember you saying something that you're looking into that. So, what can be done to stop this last-minute surge of Democratic votes? Like you said, if something could be done like 10 years before, where it was done more honestly and adequately, and can that be done again?
So 2 things. First of all, Milwaukee has the power between their clerks how they run their elections. They do have that power, and they do use a central count. That is required by law, and I don't have power over Milwaukee, but it is something I think people need to know and then have the conversation about it. So what will be done about that? Like I say, on election day, I've had some conversations with clerks. The amount of ballots they are getting last minute, and I mean within the last minutes of these elections, is insane. And so I would hope it would be something that we could work together to, at this point, they legally can do it. They are literally walking in the last minute with this. Why? Because they are still by law allowed to walk in with their ballots. Well, how would you like me to force my governor to do that? Okay, you understand that I still, whatever we write with the Senate and the Assembly, I still need the governor to sign. So we are working within the rules that we have, and it is as frustrating for you as it is for us that go through all the process of it. Yes, ma'am. Well, we do. I want to let you know, Justice Gableman is one of the folks that I can guarantee Ken Dragotta that follows that truck. We have Republicans that follow those trucks. Every year, late at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, they're doing it. So there are really incredible folks doing it. But yes, that is why so many ballots are coming in late at night in Milwaukee. So now that you know that, what would you write? Then that is the conversation we have to make sure that we can have a transparent and fair process, right? Go ahead.
There is a bill, I don't have the number, that deals with communities that are over 35,000 in population, and that's to stop the ballot dumping.
I have a suggestion. Why doesn't Waukesha wait until Milwaukee's reported and we sit there till 4 in the morning? And why don't we get every other Republican county in the state to do the same thing and wait till the next day if that's what it takes until Milwaukee finally comes in? Anybody in favor of that?
I also hear time after time, what can we do? I think we have to play the game that they play. We have to go on social media. We have to spread our word. If we don't have the candidates at the time, we need to get out what we stand for. That's life, liberty, justice, the law, and patriotism. So please, however you think you can work, going out, giving out messages and papers and things like that is one by one. We need to get through the masses as much as they do. They set the rules. Look how effective they were. Let's do it too. Please, people, don't be hopeless. But we have to do it. We have to protect our children, our schools, everything like that. So please be a patriot. Follow Trump. He gave us a guideline. Let's go to it.
Can I just say briefly, you are exactly right where the gray areas are. We have finally, in whether it's Waukesha, Walworth, and the other counties that are fighting back locally and getting people elected to the local boards, and it's driving the left nuts right now, and because we are fighting on their turf. The other thing which you mentioned, where there are gray areas, then we got to hit them hard too. And I've always thought, similar to what Terry just said, in Waukesha County, they need, if Madison is going to go to the parks and get ballots, then nothing happens. We got to match them toe to toe, and we'll do the same damn thing. And then you'll see that again. That is when the Democrats will come in and say, "Oh, we got to stop this." And we start out doing it.
Just a suggestion, I think we use election systems and software equipment throughout the state of Wisconsin. So the scanners, the small scanners that connect via cell phone are DS200s. The medium-sized machines are DS450s, and the big ones are DS850s. The 450s and 850s are the ones that report via the key fob, and those are the ones that always come in late. Because all of the small communities mix all of the ballots, same-day voting, pre-voting, absentee, that's kind of a mishmash. I think it would help if we would give guidelines to all the communities that they separate all of the voting day ballots and report those separately from all absentee ballots. That way, if we saw a pattern in absentee ballots that was different for all the central count facilities, it would be obvious right away. But because all the ballots are mixed together, all we see, for example, in the Elmbrook election, we had 70-30 for Bashir Hassan for school board. Up until the point where Brookfield Central County was reporting, it was 55-45 for James Gonzalez, the conservative. And then the central count numbers came in, and it's like, whoa, what the heck happened? And we had no baseline to compare it to. So mandating, and this would be something the WEC could do, mandating that all absentee ballots are reported by precinct as a separate number would help a lot.
Well, I just want to say I'm so grateful for all your time. I'm also grateful for the time of all the election workers here. It seems to me, because I know you guys are doing your best to get all these laws passed through, but it seems to me like our biggest barrier to getting these passed is Governor Evers. So my question to the room is, who here is ready to work to make sure that Governor Evers is no longer governor next year? Now raise your hand a little bit higher. Because that's the extra effort that it's going to take to make sure that this gets done. Because they're doing their damnedest to make sure that these laws get passed. But if we don't win next year and get our state back, it doesn't matter. So we're going to have to pull ourselves up out of the bootstraps. Don't get discouraged. Terry and Wisred proved that when Republicans turn out, when we put in the work, we win. We need to do that next year too.
Be a poll worker, be a poll observer. We're here with John in the back. Sir, next question.
Sure, thank you. My son and I,
not been very politically active in the past at all. Just because of all the things going on, we decided that we volunteered for the Wisconsin recount as observers. So we went and observed, and what we saw was pretty head-spinning. Saw the manufactured ballots that the gentleman mentioned before, saw ballots remade from Trump into Biden ballots, things like that. It was just eye-opening and very crazy. A question I have for you and the group, because I understand you're really handling the legislative side of things, is the legislation that you're working on, is it specifically targeting not just enhanced observation at these things, but yet it seems like as things are flagged, and my son and I would flag things, as things are flagged, that just kind of goes in notes that may get used for lawsuits later. Is there anything that can be done in the legislation that there's something can be done right there on the spot when there's fraud that's being observed, that rather than it just, the way it was with the recount is like, it'd kind of go to the election commission and they'd kind of deliberate and the Democrats would always win. And, it seems like there should be like a secondary or some sort of third-party official that could be there that could enact something or really freeze what's going on. Something that needs to be done rather than waiting months for lawsuits.
Yeah, it's a good question. And other states, they've looked at things like specific election investigators, and having a way of flagging it right away, having a process is a good suggestion. I just want to point out how frustrating and ridiculous it is when you have real-world examples like this, and the media treats us like we got tinfoil on our heads for pointing this stuff out, right? I mean, it's you have real-world examples, and that's what's so frustrating, right? That we all can see it. You saw that happen, and we're treated like we're crazy for thinking there is absolutely anything to be suspicious about. So it's a good suggestion, and it's a good example of what we're up against in terms of showing people that we are fighting and that we care and that it really matters and this stuff is happening, right? So thank you for your story, and I think it's a good suggestion.
Hi, my name is Carla, and I live in West Dallas, and I was a poll worker. I don't have any questions, but I just have some comments for everybody in the room. This is all very difficult. We can't run away with our tails between our legs. We can't rely on all of our elected officials to do the work for us. We have to help them. And I too have felt the frustration and didn't want to donate to the Republican Party, and I'm like mad and I'm going to give up. Well, our men and women that fought in the services and have died and are still fighting, they didn't effing give up. So you got to realize that we're up against a lot of stuff. Look what it took to take President Trump out. It took a pandemic. It took cheating. A number of other things I can't even think of right now.
$20 million.
Okay,
Yep.
and that was another thing I wanted to touch on. Okay, there is so much money in cancel culture fighting against us. For you to sit here and go, well, I'm not going to donate or I'm not going to do this. Well then, crawl under your desk at home and die, or get on the train and go to a gas chambers, because this is serious shit. So thank you guys for being here, and everybody wake up, do your part. You need to educate yourself. You can go on these websites and find these bills. You can see what they're doing. Stop complaining. Thank you.
My name is Cal Patterson from New Berlin. I got two issues. First being, all of these bills that you're doing, how many of them are going to get through the legislature and to the governor, and how many of them are going to get stopped by the leadership in the legislature?
I think I mean, we're gonna fight it out. I mean, that's what we do to make sure that we have good legislation. I mean, nothing's rubber stamped. We're not gonna do anything just to feel good about ourselves. We're gonna do bills that we think will close these loopholes. And I don't see why leadership would have any problems with these. I guess the real question is, as I mentioned to you before, I need you to make sure that if Governor Evers decides to vote no on a bill that's going to let you go closer to be able to view during an election, that you, as somebody who's an observer, embarrass the hell out of them. I mean, our laws are clearly built on transparency. If he wants to veto a bill that says that you can't vote twice in this state, write him that letter, give him an email. I mean, don't give him the pass that he needs.
But make him veto it.
Make him run on 2022 that he doesn't believe in fair elections.
Don't let him get away because you think he'll veto it.
Yeah.
The other question is really to the leadership again. Is it principles over politics or politics over principles? And I'll use the mask mandate. Yes, we got it voted against, and we got it, and the court confirmed it. But that was after the November election. It was August when it came up, and it was August when the legislature should have taken that action.
I did the resolution to eliminate the mask mandate, and I did that in August. Unfortunately, the Senate was ready to roll, unanimous. I gotta say, Senator Fitzgerald, who's now in Congress, I went to him, and it was within 24 hours, he called our caucus together, and we all agreed, let's go. But we needed the Assembly to also go, and they did not. So it does get back to leadership, you are correct. And unfortunately, it took us until early this year to finally get that resolution up and out. And it is frustrating. It's not because of these guys. It rolls right back to leadership.
I just wanted to tell you all that if you have nothing to do tomorrow, WECA has a meeting tomorrow, and it's on the Dominion machines. And you can find it on, is it Wisconsin Eye? Or you can zoom in on it, and you'll be able to listen to those 6 people discuss with Megan Liebman all about the Dominion machine.
We're going to wrap it up after this with the last question, okay?
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. Okay, thank you.
Here we go.
So my question is more on what is the Republican Party of Wisconsin doing to help our chief inspectors as far as any poll workers as far as training? I know they're required every 2 years to be able to, they need training. I'm a poll worker in New Berlin, and I don't want to throw anybody in the bus, but I'm a little concerned about our chief inspector, a couple of them. So, not nefarious, but I'm just a little concerned. What do we do? Okay, okay, right. But, what is the next step? What is the Republican Party going to do about that? Because if the clerk isn't going to do something, what do we do?
So remember, for anybody that is here, if you haven't paid membership dues, it is $20. You know, it's $20. And the reason is that way, I know that when you become a poll worker, I know that you're a Republican. I know that when I send you that you'll be a Republican poll worker. And that is part of the reason when we determine Republicans or Democrats when they go to the polls themselves. So if you have not, consider it, because this is the party that's going to fight for you. As far as moving to a chief inspector role, that is a determination not only by the clerk. So you may want to talk to your clerk in your community and have that conversation. Thank you so much for being a poll worker to the point where you're ready to make that next leap, because we need that chief inspector is the one that is the one that really runs that room. And if I have not said so before, that is a really important process.
And if we could just point to the work that this county party is doing, Terry and others on WISC Red, to make sure we have good conservatives elected in these local elections. I think that's super important in a way that we can make sure we have more people that are willing to do their job right and be transparent and uphold the law, when we have people that we know and have vetted and have good conservatives in these positions. So that's just another reason that what they're doing at the local level to make sure we have conservatives in office is very important.
Okay, we got a last question here, right?
Oh, you're gonna have to make it really good.
Oh, I wish I had a great joke. I don't. But thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. So, last item about the absentee ballots, because we've seen it nationally, locally, same play, and you get the same Democratic playbook. We've seen it locally at the school board, we've seen it nationally, we've seen it with Governor Walker. So, along with, I think, earlier separating the ballots, that was something that was by precinct. That's, I think, a good suggestion also to write into legislation. But to that, also adding, I spoke to our clerk about the timing of when the absentee ballots are collected and counted. Meaning, why having the absentee ballots collected before 8 a.m. on election day and counted by 3 to 6 or by the end of day on election day.
No, absentee ballots can start at 7 a.m. that morning and maybe the machines do.
So there should be a due date. Your absentee ballot isn't in our hands by 8 a.m. on election day. Then why aren't you're absent? You're not able to vote today, so that's why you did absentee.
I've talked to, we have 1,700 clerks in the state. We have some really hardworking folks. And we have clerks like in Milwaukee that have tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of votes. And then we have small communities where we only have less than 100. They don't have machines. They do things by hand. Milwaukee does things with a central count. So when we write legislation, I have to think of the community of 100 as well as the size of Milwaukee or a Dane. So there's a lot of variables, but you are right. We've been having some different conversations about how to handle these absentee ballots so they can be done in a more reasonable time frame. Okay? God bless you all. We are not going to win unless we work together. I am completely imperfect. Terry is perfect. My other two representatives and senators are amazing. I am really grateful that you all came out here today. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, thank you all. I just want to add, do not give up. We need you. Can you imagine the future of Wisconsin if the Democrats are in charge completely? I mean, it's absurd to even think about. Do not give up. We have an obligation to the state because we care. You have an obligation, I have an obligation. Not enough people care, so thank you.
I'll just say it is going to be challenging because we're going to get these bills up and out. They're going to go to the governor. He's already said he's probably going to veto all of them. But that sets the stage, getting rid of him. And then it's up to you guys, and when the legislature is seated again, to get on their case and get these bills passed. Don't let them forget about them. And I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes, and all of you are echoing that. And that is that if you don't like what your government is doing, and in a unified action, rise up and take charge of your government, or one day your government will have taken charge of you. And so,
Ken's just going to say,
all right, if anybody is interested in becoming an election inspector, we're planning on having training here in Waukesha throughout the summer. If you want to be an observer, which is different, you're observing, you're free to go wherever you want. That's different. We're also going to have that training here. But an inspector training and chief training will be held here. Once you're done with the class, you will be certified, and you shouldn't have any reason why you're not accepted by your local municipal clerk.
Okay, folks, if you just turn around, you see that big strapping guy back there, that policeman from Waukesha. His name's Ryan. Let's give him a big hand. Ryan, thanks for being here. We love you. You're welcome here. This is your home. Folks, I hope you found this interesting. We wanted to make sure you had your voice heard. We're going to be doing this again. And if you have any issues, questions, whatever, you come right here and you talk to us, okay? The door is open. If you don't, that's your fault. Because we're open to you, okay? Thanks for coming. think so.